Hey there guys, DMO73 here, back bringing you another feature match. This was at Youmacon with my buddy Bradley Butts. He is playing a mono-green Vlad list, and I am playing the blue-white Valentina list that was coined by Matt Cosmore and his group of guys. Really fun list, blue-white Valentina Midrange kind of list. So yeah, let's go ahead and just dig right in. So Brad's going to be going first because he won the die roll. It's a very interesting list, much faster than I was anticipating for this mono green Vlad. He really tweaked this list a lot, and he did well enough to place in top 16 in our states. So first turn Elvish Priest to get that ramp in, get that Gleipnir and a Cheshire Cat. Get that draw power early. Goes to Brad. Interesting thing is he actually ran 20 green stones in his stone deck. So priest for priest, and a Gretel, and ramp up. So you see there's just a lot of mana ramping very early. So I attempt to play the Shangri-La, and unfortunately for me, he has a absolute cake zone to cancel it, and so he's going to get to draw into a card, and so I'm going to have to pass a turn. At this point, while I'm at 2 will, Brad's already at 6. I mean, that's a lot. He's way ahead of me in terms of ramp. So he uses 4, plays a Hansel Gretel, which lets him get another draw a card and lets him put a stone into play tapped. So again, even more ramping. And he's got that bow now as well, which gives him some fine shape. So throw out another Cheshire Cat, trying to draw into some stuff. Put in an Alice Soldier. Essentially just trying to throw out a Shroud base so that I have some kind of walling up to do. Tapping for another stone. He's tapping 5 and he plays Darwin. So with Darwin out on the field, because he has 6 green magic stones, at least 6 wind magic stones, all of his wind resonators get +4/+4. So now suddenly everything is huge. So I just took 1400 damage from a Hansel Gretel and a Gretel. Use Gleipnir to try to draw. I'm essentially just trying to draw into something here, but the thing is, it's puts me in a bad position because he's got a huge mana base too. Like, he still has 3 up, so he can still do a cancel. So I try and throw out Medusa, which immediately just gets Zeexed and canceled out, and again, just puts me in a really bad spot. Meanwhile, that stone base for him just keeps growing larger and larger and larger. Another Hansel Gretel. Reminding him that it comes into play tapped. Swings in with Hansel Gretel. I block that. I don't want to take another 800 damage too fast. Swings in with Gretel, block that as well. Like, as I said, a lot of people thought that mono green Vlad was too slow, but against a mid-range deck like Valentina, I mean, obviously you just saw how quickly he was able to ramp up. Even Darwin gets a boost from himself, so like it's 1200 damage to my face with Darwin. and then he plays the plays Jin to bounce 2 Hansel Gretels. And he could bounce the Elvish Priest as well. I don't know why he didn't, but he could have brought the Elvish Priest back. But then, because the 2 Hansel Gretels entered the field and they have enter effect, when this card enters the battlefield effects, he just gets 2 more stones and 2 more cards. Like, a lot of pressure, and suddenly that Jin is a 1400. Like, I try and play. I get an Alice. I'm able to get an Alice because he is tapped. He only has 1 stone up. And I played a Cheshire Cat to try to help myself kind of stall out. Pitch a Gleipnir, draw another card. Leaving me with 1 stone up versus Brad's a ton. And then I pitch out the Darwin at the start of his turn with my Alice. But at this point it really doesn't matter because he's getting to the point where any amount of damage puts him in range to be able to just drain me to death with Vlad. Block with Cheshire Cat on the one, block with my Scout on the other, and then just swings in with Jin and then can burn me to death. So very, very fast defeat from Mono Green Vlad. So we'll go to game 2. So obviously this time I'm gonna try and go a little bit quicker because I don't want him to be ramping quite so early. But Valentina is kind of a mid-range deck. So I mean, with the way that Brad has designed his list to go, I mean, ramping is going to happen very quickly for him. So I got an Alice Scout. Those dice, that was my wife. She was with me for Youmacon. She loves dice, so she was buying dice all weekend. So I get that Alice Scout out. Out comes that Elvish Priest. Again, the ramping starts early for his list. Use Valentina's effect to flash in a Cinderella. Swing in for 200 damage. That just blocks it with the Elvish Priest. Throws out Retoskier, so now he can flash in all of those green Resonators, like all of the ones that are in his hand. And Retoskier can't be targeted by anything during my turn. Put out a Cheshire Cat. Try and force the Elvish Priest to block. Now here's my problem. I try to force the Elvish Priest to block, and this I actually help him in this because he responds to it by tapping it for will, so that it's not recovered. So then he's produced a green will that's floating. This is actually a brilliant play by Brad. So it produces green will in response, then Gleipnir resolves, and it untapped recovers him because I'm Valentina, and he just produces another green will, spends those 2 green will, and puts out a Gretel. And Elvish Priest is tapped down, so it can't stop my block. He just blocks the attack with Gretel. So I just helped him ramp, and I didn't successfully remove his Elvish Priest. Like, a really, really good play by Brad. Just that bow come out because he wants some kind of removal. Passes to me. Draw. I use Valentina's effect to flash in. I should have flashed in that card during my upkeep. or sorry, during the end of Brad's turn, but I wanted to see what I could draw. Maybe draw into a Cinderella over the Squire. The other thing is, typically Mac Osmore's list runs Hanzos over Squires, and I honestly would prefer to run Hanzos over Squires, but my Hanzos were already committed to a different deck, and so I just wanted to play what I had written out. So out came Squire, and there's the cancel. You're gonna see me try to play a bunch of these, and kudos to Brad, he just stops them every single time. So I attempt to swing in for 200 damage to Brad. And again, I mess up the same thing. He responds, he flashes it, taps, he responds again. So I'm trying to force the Elvish Priest to block, and I just end up giving him two will for free, and then just gives him a free reign to quick cast in that Hansel Gretel. Like, I'm surprised at how well this mono Vlad list ran, and the fact that I was using Gleipnir to just help him was just, really, really, really messed that up. And Ratoskir was surprisingly incredibly powerful. Attempt at another, and then it just gets canceled again. Yep, can't get those Shangri-Las out on the board to save my life. Use Valentina's effect to put an Analysis Scout. Try to reminding myself that I can't target Ratoskir. Drains me for 4 at the end of my turn, because he's got all that extra will just sitting there, so we might as well. So again, we're reaching that point where Brad's shifting to a mana sink kind of game. And since all my stuff is so small, I mean, he's just literally just drawing, seeing what he's got, tapping for a stone, and passing turn. So I'm forcing Hansel Gretel to block this turn with Gleipnir. I'm going to pump up my Cinderella, so it's a 4/8, so it will kill that Hansel Gretel. So I finally got something off the board. Cinderella's effect. Get in another Cinderella. I'm going to attempt to put in Alice, the Guardian of Dimensions, and he's going to Zeke's that. Or at least I thought he was, but this is actually a really smart play by himself. So it's on the chase. And so what he does is he puts in an Exceed, and then he chains that by a summoning of Feasting. So Feasting gets summoned, then Exceed cancels it, and then he draws a card. That was a really, really good play by Brad. And then I just have to pass turn at that point, and he just drains me for another 200. As I said, this list by Brad. I'm very impressed with how smoothly this list ran for him. So I'm excited to show you guys the deck profile for it later this week. Also, pro tip, just don't gleep near something that can produce well. So again, he just untaps and passes to turn for 8, and that's interesting. So I forced the Feasting to block, and he could do the exact same thing that he did with the Elvish Priest, but he chooses not to. So at this point I choose to J-activate, because I know that I just need to start putting pressure on him. And really, Valentina's not really helping me at all. But I do get a free stone because of Valentina's effect. So, still get to get a little bit ahead. A little bit of will back. So this was great. I attempt to do God's Art on his Feasting. This just goes to show how well he operated this list. So I tend to do God's Art on his Feasting, and then he just plays Jin and bounces his Feasting and his Elvish Priest in response. So my God's Art just whiffs. So I force Jin to block. Swing in with my Cinderella. Attempt to swing in with my Cinderella. He does let it block. So he takes 800 damage and my Cinderella dies. Yes, I could have saved my, if I'd saved my Little Red the Pure Stone, I would have just naturally outright killed it, but I wasn't thinking about that because I didn't know the Jin was coming. So in response to the attack from the Scout, he just flashes in a Gretel and lets that kill it. So I attempt to crash in an Alice's little Scout. He plays a Zeke's to pump up his whole field by 2/2. I draw. I attempt to swing in with the Squire, and he just blocks for the Toskier, which has gotten a bunch of, which has gotten 2 buffs. So it's a 4/6, so that still blocks it. And I play a Cheshire Cat, and that's all I can do. So he played that so smoothly, and now he's got a 1k beater on the field, and in come that Elvish Priest and that Feasting back. So again, his ramp game is too strong. So he's got a Feasting and a Scheherazade actually in his deck, in his hand. So he's trying to think of whether he wants to play something this turn or just be on the same game of just, tap, of just draw, tap for stone, pass turn. So I attempt to swing in with Valentina, and I've got 5 cards in my hand, so she's a 10-10. And then I force the Djinn to block. In response to no responses. So he is going to block with the Djinn. It's going to die if Valentina doesn't take any damage, because she has the effect if she takes no damage during my turn. So I've gotten that Djinn off the board. So now all he has is that ramp stuff. So I take a Gambit and put out a Gorgon. Put out a Medusa. And he doesn't have a cancel for it. So I'm like, yes, finally got that through. And I pay 3 and I play another Gorgon out there, because now I want to start putting all that pressure on him. At the end of my turn, he flashes in Scheherazade and calls Gorgon. So now my Gorgons can't even attack him. They can attack Resonators, which is great, but they can't attack him, the player. And then he flashes in a Feasting as well. And burns me for 2. So he's top decking, but he's at that point where he's got a lot of will to be able to make use of Vlad's Drain effect. So now he's able to kind of undo a lot of damage that I can put on the board each turn. Pass his turn. So he drew that bow, and I really don't know why he didn't play it. He could have easily flashed in that bow and had that extra damage, but I think he wants to try to trick me into thinking maybe he's got to cancel. So one thing I could have done here is I could have forced Scheherazade to block. But instead what I do is I just use Swordsman of the Full Moon to bounce. He taps and removes from game one of my Gorgons. And you could have done that anyway in response. So thinking about whether or not to play that Exceeds Light, something that I thought about tweaking in as well, but it wouldn't work because it doesn't get sent to the graveyard, it gets removed from game. So my Swordsman of the Full Moon comes out and does stop that. Does bounce the Scheherazade back to his hand. So I swing in for... I have 3 cards in my hand, so I swing in for 800. Just thinking about whether or not he wants to block it. It blocks it with an Elvish Priest. Tend to swing in with the Gorgon. Allows himself to take the 600. I'm deciding whether or not to attack with something else, and I just pass the turn. So again, he just drains me for 600. So essentially undoing all my damage. Like I said, I have to put essentially twice as much damage in order to be able to make any kind of headway against this deck now. Because he's at that point where he's got so much will to burn. He can just mitigate all that damage. So he draws another Djinn. He's got that Scheherazade still, taps for another stone. And just passes, if I remember correctly. Yep, just goes on the play 2 pass game. Squire, draw a card. Scout. So I have this full board and it's great, but a lot of it, I mean, 3 of those Cheshire Cats can't do damage and he's not even trying to attack. So like Cheshire Cats really are worthless to me right now because I haven't been able to get a single one of my Shangri-Las to resolve. So attempt to swing in for 2. Cinderella. Takes the 200 from Cinderella. Takes the damage from Valentina as well. for 1,000 damage total so far. Draw a card with Valentina. Swinging with Gorgon. Takes that damage as well. Puts him down to 3,000. Swing in with my flying in the air for another 900. Puts him down to 21. Swing in for 500. Blocks with the feasting. Which immediately means that my soldier's killed. And I can't attack with anything else that turn. And again, at the end of my turn, he just burns me for 1,200. Just like that. Just burns me for 12. Like nobody's business. So I did all that damage to him, but he just burns me anyway. And I'm still getting in that damage against me, and he essentially puts me in range to where he's going to be able to burn me to death in next turn. Like he literally just has to tap for a stone, do any kind of amount of damage, and he'll be able to burn me to death. Like 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. Like he can literally just burn me to death that turn. So he just taps and uses Vlad to finish me off. I mean, that's the power of Vlad. It just is a natural mana sink win con, and when you have a deck that ramps that much like Brad, it's great. So let me know what you thought about these decks, guys. Deck profiles will be up this Saturday. And go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, this is DMO73 signing off.